Jason Baffrey, we are live, sir.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Coach Talk TV, where we believe that coaching and coaches are an essential part of human development. You'll learn how having a guide in your own personal development can change your life, improve your relationships, and enhance your work experience. I'm Jason Baffrey, and this lovely lady is Rhonda Boyle, and you are watching Coach Talk TV, where we are having coaching conversations that matter.
Yes, we are having coaching conversations that matter. Jason Baffrey, good to see you today, sir. How are you?
Good. It's a nice sunny day outside for a change, and it's good. Everything's good.
Yay, hey. And we have an amazing guest today. I cannot wait to introduce y'all to Dan Vincent.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And if the pre-show conversation is any indication of what this show is going to be like, you guys are going to love it.
It's true, because we have solved all of the world's problems. You know, what we have been talking about today, though, is purpose. Yeah. Purpose, and Dan is going to talk to us about finding that calling on your life. But I did a little research,
Yeah, because you have input, and that's what you do.
It is what I do. I'm nosy. That's what you're saying. I hear you.
Right.
But guess what? You didn't have to agree with me.
Oh, sorry. I have no idea.
Guess what I found out, though?
What is that?
That if you have a sense of purpose, this sense of something that drags you out of bed in the morning, then a study, now this study is it's a few years, it's dated, but I haven't found anything newer, but it says that you're going to live longer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I would think that, I don't know if it's part of the study, but I would think that you would live more joyfully if you have purpose in your life and what you're doing. But I don't know, longer is good too.
Yeah.
Get older, longer is better.
Well, purpose is, I think purpose is meant to be like life-giving, so it would be something you would want to do. Hey, Brad Helton is coming in from Tulsa. Right. Debbie Lissauer, she's our first coach in New York and New Jersey. She is in the house. Good to see everybody. Yeah, let me tell you what they did. But back to this purpose study real quick, is they asked more than 6,000 people, 20 to 70, whether they felt they had a strong sense of purpose in their life. And they said, some people wander. They asked people to score the following statements. Some people wander aimlessly through life, but I am not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The next one was, I live life one day at a time and don't really think about the future.
Yeah.
And then the third is, I sometimes feel as if I've done all there is to do in life.
Yeah, I think if you're answering that question, boy, I don't know who could answer.
Kind of sad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or you're somebody who's extremely wealthy,
kind of lost,
done everything that they've wanted to do, I guess, maybe. But yeah, I don't think any kind of average human being should be able to answer that question and say they've done everything that they wanted to. And having purpose, I think, is vitally important. And I feel like my purposes may have changed throughout, and I have been rewarded in different ways for things. But, I can't lie and say that I haven't had days or weeks that I've woken up and felt like I didn't have any purpose. But I think once you get into the groove and you really do have, what you're working toward and what you're working for, and you're rewarded for that, and I don't mean financially, I mean emotionally, internally rewarded, because you feel like you're doing something that matters,
right,
at least to you, then that makes life so much better.
Well, I think that's what they're talking about. It makes life so much better that you actually live longer.
Yeah.
So they said that death rates were recorded for the next 14 years, and the study found that people who died scored lower on purpose in life and positive relations with others. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's funny because it makes me think of this commercial that I've been seeing from Hershey's. And I know you love chocolate, because most ladies love chocolate, but it's a Hershey's commercial, and it shows this guy, and I can't remember his name, but he's 90. It basically just tells his story. He's 94, and every day he goes out and just hands out Hershey's bars to people. And he's 94 and he looks vibrant, and he's talking about how much he just loves to give and see people's response when he gives them this, little gift of chocolate on a regular basis. And, so he's being fulfilled in that. And, at 94, if you're still getting out every day and handing out chocolate bars to people, I think that's pretty awesome.
Sorry about that. I just pulled up on my Facebook. Did you hear that? I'm working. I had a little hiccup over here.
Oh, no. I saw that our guest popped out and then popped back in.
Hey, you know what? Hashtag first world problems, and the Mercury retrograde has begun. I don't even know what that means. Some of y'all do, but I looked the other day and I saw something that said Mercury retrograde starts on, I think it was Monday yesterday. And I thought, oh, good. Jason and I have something we can blame our problems on. I know. Hey, and you know what? We should probably get going here and introduce everybody to Dan Vincent. Oh, but before we do that,
I thought
let's hear from our first sponsor.
Hey, are you still putting off your dream job? Are you looking for your calling or your purpose in life? Have you wondered how to ask for that raise or promotion in the job that you have, but you're not sure how to go about doing it? Maybe you're looking for a total career change, or you're trying to reinvent yourself after retirement, and you don't just want to hand out chocolate bars when you're 94 years old. We've got some great news for you. It is 2020. The Mercury retrograde has kicked in, but it's still going to be a great year, and it is your year. It's not enough just to live. We deserve to thrive in all areas of our lives. And Coach Talk TV is all about connecting you to a coach that can get you to the next level of journey. And you can find that coach by going to soar.com. Soar.com to find your coach that will change your life.
There you go. And people need coaching all the time.
They do.
Coaching is like all the rage.
Yeah,
at least it is in my life.
Right. And our guest coach today has some great things going on with his business and his life, and a new event coming up soon. And I can't wait to hear all about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce you. Rhonda, you've got a little bio information.
I do.
Tell them about our guest today.
Let's hear about Dan Vincent. He created Kaleo Coaching 3 years ago, recognizing his desire to build others up to the good work that they were called to. Dan brings much experience to his coaching, having served previously as a missionary, a pastor, an operations manager, a director, and in many other capacities. He loves coaching others to realize that they work best and will be most successful when using their natural gifts and talents. Dan Vincent, come say hey.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're so glad that you can join us today, Dan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are excited to hear from you, because really you help people with this very important thing, identifying their purpose, their calling, their mission in life, because really that's more important, I think, than money, don't you?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think you don't have to look far to find plenty of wealthy people that are struggling, plenty of lower income people that may be really satisfied with work. So it doesn't necessarily correlate that those things always line up. But I think it always has to do with yourself, who you are. How do you figure that out? What does that process look like? And that's what I love doing, is helping people go down that path.
I love that. So help us understand how you coach others to discover this calling in their life. Where do you even start?
Sure. One of my he's a new favorite author for me. His name's Parker Palmer. He has a book called Let Your Life Speak. And in that book, he suggests a question that a lot of us have probably responded to. He suggests it's probably not the best question. And that question is, what would you do if you had unlimited resources? I'm not sure about you, but I've been asked that question myself, actually from someone who is attempting to coach me, saying, well, if you could do anything, if you had unlimited resources, what would it be? And in this book, he suggests that's not the right question, because that's not reality. And the better question is to begin with, who are you? And how have you come to be who you are? How have you come to experience joy and happiness? How have you come to experience pain? What does that process look like? And so it's much more of a looking back process as it is a looking forward. In other words, many times we say, I'm called to do this and only this. And we oftentimes refer to a job title. But without really understanding who we are, you're probably not going to find the fulfillment and satisfaction that you're looking for. So I love using Gallup's Clifton Strengths Assessment. It's a great assessment to really kind of turn the mirror, look yourself in the mirror, and gives great language and verbiage to understand that question that Palmer suggests, and that is, who are you? What do you have to offer? What are the talents that you have naturally? But then you pair that also with how was I raised? What was the environment I was brought in? And looking back, it brings clarity, brings so much more clarity than just looking 10 years down the road and saying, that's the job I want one of these days. That's my calling.
Mm-hmm. I think that calling or that purpose has absolutely less to do with what you're doing and more to do with how you're being. In fact, you said it. Yeah. In a sense, or you used a being verb. Who are you? How have you come to be who you are? That's so much more introspective. It causes introspection as opposed to, looking at it from a job perspective, because I mean, that is what you do, and you do things that fulfill your purpose, but that's exactly why you do them. They are to fulfill that purpose or that calling.
Yeah, absolutely. And because that job, we like to use the word vocation. That's just your method of working out that calling that may or may not change. And these days, most people, it will change. The days of working 40 years at a job, that's not the case for the majority of people. And so there will be some change. And I think there's freedom in acknowledging and giving yourself permission to say, okay, my calling isn't tied into this specific job title on my office door. My calling is more about what I have to offer, what I bring to the table, how I can contribute to something. And so whenever you can be free from that desire to say, no, but I'm only called to do this, there's empowerment, there's freedom. And I think it kind of removes some anxiety and stress from feeling like, oh, I'm not working out my calling. I'm not living what I'm supposed to be doing. And it gives you the ability to really make some decisions on how you're going to live that out. And vocation is a large part of that, but it's just how you live out that calling.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, what is the difference between somebody who is working with passion and somebody who is, I hate to use the word stuck, but perhaps feels stuck and they're struggling with their work, their vocation?
Yeah. A popular metric these days is engagement. And I think that's a word that kind of starts to tease that difference there. But that could be a positive attitude when going to work. It could be positive interactions with colleagues and clients versus more negative interactions. It could also be things such as workplace injuries. Someone who is excited in their job, they're going to be more engaged, and the trickle down effect is not just going to be those interactions, but it's also going to be using less sick days. It's going to be less likely to get hurt while on the job. It should also, according to a lot of data, especially if you go to Gallup, and I'm sure there's others that would reflect this, it would carry over into profits and successful business. And so success in that work that you're actually providing for that organization, whether that's your own small business or a larger company. So it can be anything from interactions to profits to sick days. It carries over into all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Some of them can't be measured either, or you mentioned a metric of engagement, but sometimes it's really hard to measure that. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, though, that you said is that your job or vacation is just your method of working out your calling. It may or may not change, meaning the job certainly can change, but also, don't you think that a calling can change or a purpose can change too?
Sure, I think so. I think, and especially, and this is why going back, I said it's much more of a looking back process as you experience things. And I wouldn't say I'm somebody who's experienced like a severe traumatic event in my life, but I think if you were to talk to somebody who's experienced something like that, and I'm thinking of a close friend of mine right now, which is why I'm using this example. I think it's moments like that, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a traumatic event, but the point is there can be events that happen in your life that can shift, that can shift who you are. It might even be able to shift some of those natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And with that could be a different outlook on life, a different way that you want to participate in life. And so we kind of equate those things to calling. And so, yeah, I do think it's possible it could change.
So, Dan, what are you and Kaleo Coaching doing to kind of highlight this and help people to make that move or to make that change, discover their calling, if you will?
Yeah. So I'm doing an event on March the 14th. It's called a Good Work event, because really at my heart, the heart of my business, and definitely the heart behind this event is to build others up to the good work that they're called to. There was a recent study from Barna that was all about, it was a faith-based study. It was all about Christians at work. And it really talked about this struggle that people have with figuring out what am I supposed to be doing to contribute in this world. And it identified 3 different vocational personalities that we tend to fall into. And I would even say that this can mirror a lot of different studies that are out there in terms of the satisfaction that people have with their work. But those personalities were compartmentalizer, which sounds exactly what it is. It means exactly what it sounds like. People who they're super structured so much that they might say, hey, what I do on Sunday has nothing to do with what I do on Monday through Friday. The second personality is an onlooker, and that is somebody who's more on the fringes. They really want their faith, whether that's something they do on Sundays, but they really want their faith to merge with their everyday job. They want to work for a purpose, something bigger than themselves, but they really struggle with connecting those dots. And then that third personality is an integrator. And these are the people that I get the most excited about. These are the people that have this really high sense of this bigger story in our world, this bigger narrative. They understand it. They get it. It's personal to them. It is coming from their faith. But the cool thing with these people is they get how it merges with their everyday job. And so they understand that their everyday job is actually participating and contributing to a story bigger than themselves. And so they've successfully integrated that. And so there's lots of unique things about these integrators that this study speaks to. But what I've done is I've gathered multiple integrators in my local area, and I've asked them to come speak and contribute on a Q&A panel or a keynote to tell us what the process was for them. How did they go about clarifying their calling? How did they go about identifying this larger purpose behind their everyday job? And how can we build each other up to do the same thing? And so it's going to be a 200-person event. We've got several integrators, from a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps to a small business financial coach, to a chiropractor, to a nonprofit leader, to a university professor. All these integrators from all these awesome environments, they're going to come and share their stories and build people up, and really hopefully start a movement behind this whole question of how do I decide, how do I clarify what I'm called to?
Wow. I know our audience is going to want to know about that. So be sure to pop that information into the chat box when you get a chance.
Yeah, I will. I will.
So, how exciting to be able to gather people in together to talk about this super important thing that really, even though we may call it by different names, calling, purpose, impact, whatever, it's still a question. It is one of those foundational questions that we are all asking in our lives at some point. We may not be asking it today, but because situations change, we may be asking it a year from now, or when there's a disruption of some kind. So it's a great opportunity that you're offering people to really come in and take a look, especially coming from people who've already been there or that are constantly examining this, which it sounds like that's what you're doing. So a question I have is, can you help our audience today, for anybody who's listening, like what if they are struggling with this question, can't figure it out? Is there one thing that they might be able to do that would kind of guide them or propel them forward into that calling?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a helpful kind of exercise that I think can be helpful for an individual, but it's also a fun group exercise as well. Think of 3 circles. In one circle, put talent. In another circle, put passion. In another circle, put neighborhood. And so there's helpful tools to help you really fill in that talent circle. You might use Gallup's Clifton Strengths Assessment. You might use another assessment. You might have some friends really affirm and speak into you. And when you ask them, say, hey, tell me some things that I'm really good at that you observe in me. Sometimes those outside people can really affirm those things in us the best. Mm-hmm. But whatever tool you might use, fill in that talents. What are the things that I'm good at? What are the ways that I naturally tend to operate? And then in that passion circle, write down some things that you're particularly passionate about. Is it justice issues? Is it relationships? Whatever it might be, fill in some of those passions. And then in the neighborhood circle, this is really where you look around you. Maybe you start with your immediate neighborhood, like literally the houses that comprise of your neighborhood, and then kind of zoom out and look at your town or your city or your county. Don't go too big. Don't zoom out too big. And start to look at the needs in that area. What are some of the trends in terms of what our community needs? Those circles should merge together. And then where your talents, where your passions, and where your neighborhood, where they come together, you will find a lot of clarity in what you have to offer your community. And this is where you can start to answer that question. What is the good work that I'm called to in my community? Because it should start with you. So your talents and passions are important, but it should also contribute to something bigger. There's a great author / pastor that I like to follow up in New York, and he really speaks to this in a great way. He says there's a danger when we maintain this career focus. When it's career, it's all about me. It's all about building up my retirement. It's about my movement up the ladder. But when it's a calling, it's from something outside of myself. And for a lot of us, that has to do with our faith. Very specifically, it's God calling us to something. But I believe it could still come from something, even if you're not faith-based. I still think some of that might resonate with you, that wanting to be a part of something bigger. And when it's a calling, it comes from outside. And it's not a calling unless something outside of yourself asks you to do it. But here's the danger. When it's a career, whether you succeed or you fail, it's destructive. Because when you succeed, if it's self-focused, it goes to your head. And when you fail, or if you were to fail, it'll go to your heart. And so either way, there's a great danger in really harming yourself and your satisfaction and this larger sense of purpose when it's so focused on yourself. But when it's focused on outside of you, and that's why that neighborhood circle is so important, it really brings you to a different point. So when you succeed, there's celebration because it's not about you. It's about something bigger than you. And when you fail, there's learning and there's growth. So I love that comparison of career versus calling, and the dangers of career, but how the calling is actually, there's more freedom and there's a larger purpose to it. So that little exercise, that little 3-circle exercise, I think is helpful, not just to help clarify an individual calling, but really to give you that larger perspective of something bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you're saying that the calling is outside. You hear it's like the action is outside, but the inspiration is inside. It's sort of like that's where the alignment happens, is when the calling on the inside and the calling on the outside merge.
Yeah.
And then there's benefit all the way around.
Yeah. And you'll find as an individual you grow because there's invitation in that. Whenever you start to consider these things, you realize, holy cow, I'm being invited into something. And that's a big decision.
Yeah.
To either accept or reject that invitation. But that's where the adventure lies. That's where the risks come in.
Yeah.
And that's where the growth happens.
And the variety.
And then when you look back, when you start to reflect on your calling, and again, you start looking back after you start this process, I think you discover the potential for joy and satisfaction and meaning and purpose that you will not find if it's all about your own movement up. You're all about your own, your own advancement, whatever that looks like in our own, self-centered hearts.
Sure. Let's take a break, Jason, and hear from our sponsor, and we'll be back in just a minute with Dan Vincent.
If you're a parent, you know that parenting is hard. Kids do things that we don't understand, that we see as problematic, but it's really our own inability to understand how they're functioning that's the real issue. There is hope. The new Incredible Kids Assessment is now available for parents to find the joy in parenting again. Learn the secret to unlocking your child's potential, gain a better understanding of who your child is, and how to parent to their unique gifts. If you are ready to understand yourself, your children, and how to guide them to success, then please go to facebook.com/Baffrey Coaching. Reach out and we will send you an assessment that you can take to discover your parenting strengths and also find out about your child's strengths.
There you go. Baffrey Coaching with Katie and Jason Baffrey.
Yeah.
Excited about that for you guys. And you know what else? I was just thinking while we were hearing about that, is how amazing would it be for children to find and hear that calling, at a younger and younger age. Do you think it's the same? I'm sorry, Jason.
Well, I was just going to say, and I know, Dan, I was going to ask you, because you mentioned that you're already working with some schools and high school students to discover this, correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's a local program. It's actually a national program. I couldn't tell you how many school districts or counties do this, but it's called the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. And so CAPS is the acronym. And CAPS is a county program that partners with local school districts. And so we have 5 big school districts in my county, and it's a dual enroll program for seniors and juniors that want to discover if they're want to be in the healthcare, they want to be in technology fields, or want to be an entrepreneur. And so they're assigned a CAPS teacher based on those 3 strands. They go to their high school for a couple hours a day. These are seniors and that are most likely have the majority of their credits already to graduate. So they're able to only go for a couple days, and then they go off-site for the rest of the day. And they are engaged in partnering businesses. They're in the hospitals for those in healthcare. They're at Charter Spectrum for those that are in technology, and they're going around learning from entrepreneurs and business owners, from those that want to become entrepreneurs. And they're discovering and learning, what would this environment really be like? Am I really wanting to be in healthcare, or et cetera, et cetera? So the fun thing I get to do is they bring me in as a strengths coach. And so they all take their Clifton Strengths Assessment at the beginning of the school year. I work with them through their results to help them interpret it. But then I also follow up with them throughout the school year as they experience these different environments. They're getting their hands on these different projects, and I'm helping them interpret it and really implement their experience with that strengths lens, so they can see how they would perform in those environments. And so it's great because for most of them, it's incredibly affirming to say, hey, now I know what I have to offer. Again, it starts with themselves, and they know what that could look like in that environment. But I've also had some students tell me that, hey, I know that this confirmed that this isn't the area I want to be in. And so whether it affirms or confirms that they need to find something else, it's been an incredible program for our area. This is the second year in a row that they've done it, and it's growing, and it's an incredibly impactful movement. And I'm thankful to be a part of it because it allows me to work with people before they get in careers they hate, to start thinking about, hey, what do I have to offer? What do I bring to the table? And what does that look like in this environment, What does it look like when I'm partnered with somebody who's totally different than me? So it starts those conversations before they even get into college, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's so great. There are so many kids, it seems like, especially today, that just don't know what they want to do. And I know it's probably been that way throughout history. And, even myself, for a period of time, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And then I ended up changing it up and going a completely different direction. But to help those young people be able to try to find the right track early on, and by discovering their strengths. And we've talked, with more and more people that are working, that are strengths coaches, that are trying to get that implemented into schools so that these younger people can really truly discover what they're great at, and not focus so much on their weaknesses as a lot of people tend to do. And I think that's hugely important. I just think back to, the first part of my career, I was doing one thing and I felt like that was really rewarding at that time. But now in a lot of ways I do. And I think we all come at this and what you're talking about from a perspective of faith, but I get to incorporate some of that. And I feel like I'm doing good works a lot of times by, and that doesn't mean that I'm going out and doing ministry on a regular basis or evangelism or anything like that. It just means that I am doing something that I feel like is a calling, that I'm able to help other people tell their story about the good works that they're doing. And so it's hugely internally rewarding in that capacity. But I also think that if you don't have the same kind of faith that we may have, and you're just coming at it from a secular perspective, that you know what that calling may be, and it could be social justice, it could be children's advocacy, it could be racial relations, any of those things that you really, the things that that you get emotional about, or perhaps even angry about, or could be a key to your calling. And I think going through your program, Dan, can help people discover that and kind of narrow that down a lot easier.
Yeah.
Hey, Debbie Lissauer she asks, can you imagine if every student had this individualized guidance?
Yeah. So
not just, career people, but children, and she says, I think the country would be less divided if everyone's focus was on how they could make the world better. So I think that what Debbie's mentioning is some of the things that impede our calling, that stop us. There are so many more things that stop us from our calling than actually probably help us fulfill it. Like we have the busyness of life. We have money because we have to feed ourselves and have shelter. And I think that's where a lot of career people wind up accidentally. Like they never wake up in the morning and go, how can I build myself up even better? They usually do have a purpose. They're building themselves up for their family. They're trying to put food on the table or housing and so forth.
Well, and how many how many children grow up in the shadow of their parents or the direction of their parents, and they go into the same, how many children of accountants become accountants because their mom or dad is an accountant, but they really don't have a heart for accounting. That's not fulfilling them. They just feel like that's what they're supposed to do because of family business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it goes back to that starting with yourself, and I think that's why that's key, because you got to be able to do that introspective work, and coaching is a great tool to help with that process.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do on your own with journaling and kind of creating disciplines, but there's a lot of impact with someone else coming alongside you as a guide to walk with you through that process. And so with this CAPS program, that's why it's one of the more fun things I get to do, because I'm not the hero in that program. The students are the heroes. Like Joseph Campbell says in one of his famous books, A Hero with 1,000 Faces. Your journey, you might be the hero of your journey. And what I mean by hero is simply to say that you're the one who's coming up with these answers and these solutions, and the guide is just there as just the guide, and that's it. And so that's kind of what a coach is, not someone to provide the plan or the solutions, but someone just to stay curious with you and to help you unblock some things and ask some good questions and be that guide, so that you can experience that journey that is your life.
Yeah.
Yes, I think people really, coaching hasn't yet become so typical. It's like, oh, hang on, let me go call my coach, or, oh, it's time for me to get a new coach.
Yeah.
Or a coach saying, hey, I've taken you this far and it's really time for you to have a new coach. And I have one that I think you're going to work with perfectly. So we haven't reached that critical mass yet as an industry. However, I think people are starting to recognize the value of coaching. They just don't quite know, like, how do I find one? Where do I get one? They need to have some experience with one, and I do believe that doing something as simple as an exercise on helping someone find their calling in those 3 circles that you mentioned can really help set someone, push them forward into figuring this out on their own.
Yeah.
Although on their, there's, with coaching, there's on your own work, and then there's work that is facilitated by a coach, which can speed up that on your own work.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're trying to do as coaches, I think, don't you?
Yeah. Hey, Dan, if you would tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and also find out more information about your event on March 14th.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Absolutely. You can learn about my coaching at kaleocoaching.com. That's KALEO coaching.com. If you go into the events, you can register for a Good Work event if you're in the St. Louis area. I'm on Facebook, Kaleo Coaching, and the event is listed on Facebook, a Good Work event. And so you can check out speaker information, details about the event, as well as leading up to registering.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
we do want. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck with that. I hope it's a huge success, and everybody in that St. Louis area needs to sign up for that and find out what your calling and your purpose is, because I think it's going to be really great.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan. Check those links that we popped out in the chat box, and we will send people your way.
Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. This is awesome. I love what you guys are doing.
All right.
Thanks so
Talk
much.
to you later.
Wow, wasn't he great? I mean, this is such an important conversation that needs to happen all the time. Like, it's, you come about these stuck places in your life, and it's time to have that conversation again.
Yeah.
And, who better to facilitate than a coach who really is a neutral guide?
Yeah. Well, I think having that objective voice out there is important. It's much more than just talking to somebody in your family, because they're going to come at it from their own perspective and paradigm. And if you can get objective eyes on that and somebody with some coaching prowess, they can really help you out.
Awesome. Hey, by the way, you can now find us and live stream us on Alexa. You just connect your Apple Podcast, and she's going to be talking to me here in a minute. But go do that, and you can find Coach Talk TV and stream it there too.
You can
in
also
our podcast.
Don't forget to go like our Facebook page, Coach Talk TV. Also, you can watch us on YouTube. So please go like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and ring the little bell so you get notifications when we have new shows coming out. And if you miss us live or don't have the ability to watch the video replay, you can now catch the audio podcast on all of your favorite podcasting outlets, including iTunes, Google, Spotify, and a whole lot more. And you can find out more about that. You can go to Anchor FM to find that, or just go, like I said, to your favorite podcasting outlet.
There you go.
Yep.
And we will see y'all soon with our next guest on Coach Talk TV. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.